Thank you very much. So my name's Craig Niles. Thank you for joining us today. I'm an urban planner based in the Ramble office in Sydney. I'm the team leader for the ASEAN Australian Smart Cities Trust Fund for Ramble. Just before I introduce the session and introduce the speakers today, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which I'm speaking to you today. I'm speaking to you from Gadigal country, also known as Sydney, Australia. I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you. So this session is encouraged to be very collaborative. We're going to have 3 speakers who will share some experiences and some lessons from particular projects around the region. And then we will go into a collaboration and question and answer session where I encourage everyone to contribute, ask questions, put your hands up, ask questions through the chat or the question and answer box. And we will do our best to answer all those questions. But we really encourage this exercise as a chance for you to connect and network with other subject matter experts. So what we will do, if you go to the next slide, Ida, we'll get straight into it. But in terms of housekeeping, we will conduct the presentations in English, but if you would like to listen to simultaneous translation, you can click on the interpretation button and select the language that you would like to listen to and also to speak in. So for speakers and the participants, if you are speaking, if you can please moderate your speaking pace so the interpreters can keep up with the translation. We have a lot to get through, but if you go to the next slide, we'll quickly introduce, oh, there we go. So it's some more housekeeping there. The live transcript button will enable you to read the transcript. Unfortunately, that's in English only. Thanks, Ida. And if you wish to raise your hand or react to some of the conversations, please use the reactions button and raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Christine, thank you. So the objectives of this session is to introduce how digitalization can support smart city planning. And we will be using some examples from Southeast Asia and from Australia to facilitate a dialogue between the stakeholders and from the ASEAN Australian Smart Cities Trust Fund cities. We will try to understand how digital tools can be used for smart city planning. We'll also discuss the obstacles and ways forward of how to implement, develop, and sustain those tools in the long term. Thanks, Christine. So we'll start very shortly with a bit of an icebreaker using Mentimeter. So we'll give you instructions for that very shortly. Then we'll go into our first presentation, which is on the Smart and Interactive Livable City Plan for the City of Makassar. Second presentation on the digital twinning. And the third presentation on a data-driven approach to urban and strategic planning. I'll introduce the speakers to each of those presentations as we go through the program. We will finish with a question and answer session for the speakers and also then go into a guided discussion. Thanks, Christine. All right, so if you can scan for all those participants who wish to participate in this, if you can scan the QR code, and Sarah has kindly put the link to Mentimeter in the chat. If you can click on that link or go to menti.com and enter that code that you can see on the screen. I'll give you a few minutes to log in, and then we'll bring the results up on the screen. How are we doing? Are we all ready to go?
Yeah,
So
I
Christine,
think
would you
Ida,
like to
if you
share
can, yeah, Ida, could you just share your screen? I can stop sharing my screen first.
Thank you. All right, so we've got quite a few cities represented. So the larger the word on this word art, the more the number of representatives from those cities. So thank you all for submitting your answers to this. So we've got to maybe bring up the Christine, if you bring up the other slide again and just show the access to Menti. The link is not working for some people.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Didn't work for me, Craig.
All right, so maybe in behind the
for maybe
scenes.
Craig, for those who are having trouble joining with the QR code or the link that my colleague Sarah sent via chat, you can also, using your web browser, go to www.menti.com and you can enter the code that you see on screen. That's 518-9403. So that's 518-9403. So that's another way that you could also participate.
Yeah, that also didn't work. Unfortunately, Christine, it might be something to do with our browsers here in Australia. I'm not sure, but it didn't work.
Okay.
We had an error message. I had an error message.
Yeah, the same. I can get to the Menti website, but typing the code, it won't allow me to. But that's all good. Gold Coast.
All right, so what we might do is we might jump into the first presentation then. So if you can start, go to Prof. Ananto, thank you. So we've got also some greetings from a range of cities in the chat function, from Chicago, from Kuala Lumpur, a range of cities. So thank you for entering those cities, and we'll make sure we reach out to you all and let you know the breadth of participants in this session. First of all, for the first presentation, I'd like to introduce Professor Ananto Yudono. Prof. Ananto is a lecturer in urban and regional planning at Hasanuddin University in Makassar, Indonesia. Prof. Ananto completed his doctorate in urban and regional planning in 1988. He's published many articles and spoken at many conferences around the world on urban and regional planning, including the topics of transport, transit-oriented development, housing, infrastructure, architecture, and that's just to name a few. He's an extremely well-respected urban planner in Makassar and Indonesia, and he advises regularly all levels of government on city planning. I had the privilege of working with Prof. Ananto on the Makassar Livable City Plan project, and it's a pleasure to introduce him to you today. Thank you, Prof. Ananto. Would you like to share your screen?
Okay, may I share my presentation now, Pak Craig?
Yes, Prof. Thank you very much.
Oh, disable participant screen sharing. The host must permit me to share.
Christine, could you?
Pak
enable
Ananto,
that,
could
please?
you try again now if you are
Yes.
able to?
Yes.
There, I can see that you're sharing your screen, but you might have to launch your, yeah, all right, perfect.
Perfect.
You can see your screen now.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Craig, Ibu Christine. Good afternoon, everyone. The Asian Australia Smart Cities Trust Fund is a program funded by Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and managed by Asian Development Bank with Rambo, the delivery consultant. I recognize the support provided through both Australian government and ADB. The Trust Fund is focused on supporting cities in Southeast Asia with adopting smart city interventions. I would like to recognize the support from the Makassar city government, in particularly the Mayor of Makassar, Bapak Rani Pemandu. This presentation is structured to align with the approach we use in developing Makassar Livable City Plan. The analysis of needs and challenges was based on expert analysis and collaboration with city government officials. Leveraging expert analysis and collaborations, we developed a set of potential smart city interventions to address the citywide needs and challenges and improve livability. This is the overall structure for the Makassar Livable City Plan, a digital platform to support decision making. Our approach to smart cities is based on a holistic multi-sector approach. Smart cities are not just about technology, they are about governing and making decisions in a smarter way. The ultimate goal is to enhance livability in the city for the people. To do this, it is important to understand the unique characteristics of a city so that smart interventions are tailored to the city's needs and challenges. Where technology is needed, the technology must be targeted to improving the condition of the people. The interactive report acts as an online portal to access the analysis and data collected, as well as the potential smart city interventions and digital tools developed through the project. The purpose of the intervention prioritization tool is to present the expert analysis and scoring of potential smart city interventions, to enable city government user to prioritize intervention to understand implications of different investment options possible to achieve the smart city vision. The analysis of intervention scores its intervention according to potential benefit across multiple sectors, time frame and complexity of implementing the interventions, whether the intervention is transformative or enabling for the city, whether the intervention is attractive for private investment. Alignment of the intervention with the priorities of the Makassar City Medium-Term Development Plan. To collect citizen commentary, we conducted an in-person and online survey with the support of Hasanuddin University. High priority areas arising from the citizen engagement tool are those areas with the largest gap between importance and quality of services. There are early flood warning system, fire hazard and rescue services, effective storm and drainage systems, green and open spaces. The spatial mapping also combines available data into a single data set that can be uploaded to Makassar Government GIS or to other applications such as Earthscape developed by the Future Cities Lab. The INDRA platform embeds climate projections that can be adjusted to reflect different climate scenarios. The platform is hosted on the internet and allows non-technical users to understand potential risks to climate change. The tools enable GIS layers such as our population projections, housing densities, and infrastructure corridors to be uploaded to show the risks of climate impacts. The intervention priorities include climate resilience, public space, economic and social support, integrated urban planning, infrastructure solutions, smart and digital solutions for providing government services. We recognize the efforts of Mayor Dani Pumanto to develop and promote the Makaverse. Practical examples of how the Makassar Livable City Plan can live within the Makaverse include data integration, expanding the potential of the Makaverse through better and more integrated data sets, improve access to information regarding private investment opportunities, citizen engagement and exhibition platforms, business training and marketplaces for informal economy, and INDRA can be integrated into collaboration tools using augmented reality, virtual reality, and simulation. The future for the Makaverse is bright, and the Makassar Livable City Plan is a step towards achieving the vision for a world-class smart city. The key challenge for digital and smart technologies to support Makassar is breaking the status quo and bring about positive institutional change so that service providers are more agile, responsive, and properly regulated. There are 4 focus areas to achieve it. Ensure the policy, legislation, and governance are aligned. Improve inter-organizational relationships, build capacity, and optimize public-private sectors inputs. The most urgently needed digital technologies in Makassar are related to data processing tools, interoperable across agencies, and data integration. Makassar City Government has the skills to maintain and continue to update the digital tools developed by Asian Australia's Smart Cities Trust Fund, but would benefit from support for developing an integrated database, implementing digital application for public services, computer hardware, and servers. The 3 next stages of the journey for Makassar will involve first, digital transformation and capacity building within Makassar City Government. Second is integrated data ecosystem and front-end application tailored to improve government services. It has integrated planning, investment logic, community services, transport accessibility, private sector interface, operation and maintenance of existing assets. And the third is identifying priority infrastructure investments to support smart initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you, Pak Rai.
Thank you, Prof. Fernando. That was excellent. So if you can stop sharing your screen, and we'll go back to Adam, if you want to start sharing your screen, and while you're doing that, I'll introduce Mr. Adam Beck. Adam is owner and host of Urbanism.live. He's the director of the Centre of Urban Innovation. Adam's an urbanist who has worked in the private sector, consultancies, and leading global non-government organisations to advance sustainable community outcomes for the last 30 years. Adam advises on building high-performing outcomes for the built and natural environment, and regularly speaks on the convergence of digital, data, and urbanism. Until recently, Adam was the founding executive of the Smart Cities Council in Australia and New Zealand. This followed Adam's role as Director of Innovations at Eco Districts, a US-based think tank in Portland, Oregon. And I note we do have some participants online from the US, so welcome. Adam was also the Executive Director at the Green Building Council of Australia. Before entering the mission-driven sector, Adam spent 15 years with global consulting firms, GHG and Arup. Adam, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, for that very kind and long introduction. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land at which I'm joining this meeting today. I'm from Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. And I'd like to acknowledge the land north and south of the Brisbane River as home to both the Turrbal and Jagera nations, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I am an urban planner by trade, but I did give up the practice a long time ago. But recently, the last 6 years, I've spent my career trying to understand how the evolution of technology and data is intersecting with our more analog professions in the field of urbanism. And digital twin is one of many tools that are emerging to be potentially very powerful platforms and tools that can help us in planning our cities and renewing our cities. And I'm intrigued by how it's evolving as a concept, but also as policymakers and practitioners, how we embrace these new opportunities that continue to evolve. One of the first questions that's always presented when we talk about digital twin is, what is it? How do you define it? And I'm a very strong believer and supporter of the role of standards. They define what good looks like. And many of you will have been involved in either developing standards or indeed adopting them. The good news is with digital twin is that standards are emerging, and there are 4 key projects at an international level at the International Standards Organization that is currently underway. 4 projects. One deals with use cases, different applications of digital twin approaches in different environments, different sectors. There's also another one around concepts and terminology. The actual definition is within that document that's in draft form. And there's 2 other really important projects that are also emerging. One around digital twin maturity models and another one around reference architecture. So if you engage in any dialogue or you hear your peers or other stakeholders discuss digital twin, and should there be an element of, I suppose, confusion or lack of awareness or understanding about what it means, how digital twins work or should work, it's safe to say that there are international standards that are coming that certainly outline responses to those questions. But just quickly, the concept itself is not new. It's been around for a long time. Digital twin has been used in various sectors and industries, whether it be space, aero engineering, mining and industrial resources and manufacturing. They've been using digital replicas or building digital replicas of processes and physical entities and products for a long time. But its application in urban planning has certainly been a new effort just in the past few years. Globally, we're starting to see examples and applications emerge. So the broad concept is a digital replica of a physical entity, whether it be a city, whether it be a landscape, whether it be a main street. They can be applied at different scales in different geographies around the built environment, but also the natural environment. Now that's easy to say, a digital replica of a physical entity. And many immediately think about a digital model as being a digital twin. But in fact, that's not really the case. What really makes the digital twin different to a digital model, which is part of a digital twin, is its capability. And the exciting part to digital twin, whether you're engaging in the conversation or indeed using digital twins or building digital twin capability, the good news is most of us are already on the journey. We are in some way typically embracing or advancing one or more of the core digital twin capabilities. Those capabilities include data integration, which is not new to us, data analytics, that's not new either. Simulating, using data to simulate different scenarios, that's not necessarily new. And of course, visualization is often very common to us. So many of those capabilities are indeed quite old, decades old. But the digital connection between the real world and the digital replica is what makes the digital twin really come alive. That ability to allow data transfer at high rates of fidelity and frequency, that is where the real power of the digital twin emerges. The digital twin is powered by data, as I mentioned. And really, if you keep an open mind, almost anything could be fed into a digital twin, whether it be environmental conditions, many data sets that we already have access to or we're monitoring in real time, mobility and transportation, economic development, utilities, whether it be energy, water, waste, telecommunications, social well-being and health. It's almost endless. If there is data, it can be fed into a digital twin. And of course, data does not discriminate. So it's quite a powerful platform. And as I mentioned, most organizations have some digital twin capability already. As an example, the connection capability. Cities have multiple digital connectivity networks already in place. They're using the Internet of Things to sense and gather different conditions of their environments. And with IoT, that continues to evolve every single day in terms of what we can sense and the type of data that we can collect. But not all digital connections and telecommunication networks are the same. High definition video and transferring that information is very different to maybe a sort of blip every 15 minutes when something is happening in a certain place. So different types of connectivity, of course, based upon the type and frequency and size of the data to be transmitted, but that connection between the real world and the digital replica is a key capability. Data integration is a capability many cities all around the world already have, whether it be citywide geographic information system, which has been around for decades and has certainly proved itself as a powerful platform for integrating data. You can see how the digital twin, by using the lens of capability, becomes a little less scary. It becomes a little less of a mountain to climb when we piece together these capabilities. And again, as I mentioned, analysis, the process of inspecting and cleansing, verifying, and really readying data for simulation and creating visualization. Many cities are using dashboards, presenting data insights that they already have. And likewise, simulation, our ability to explore what ifs, scenarios, test different hypotheses. Our ability in simulation continues to evolve as our data assets become more diverse. And of course, as the software innovation comes to the marketplace, it also is certainly evolving. And finally, on visualization, this is one often becomes an early on-ramp into digital twin capability for cities around the world. There's different ways in which multiple dimensions of data analysis are being presented, whether it's augmented reality or other means. We know that there's simple tools now like AR, but that capability is becoming certainly more immersive and more engaging. And I think this is a real strong, powerful attribute of the digital twin, because it's a real way in which we can engage the community and citizens. We can look at data in real time. We can look at insights that, for example, on the screen here, that we normally wouldn't see, that are hidden in plain sight, like the utilities underneath the surfaces in which we sort of occupy. So combined, those capabilities become a very powerful tool set when assembled together and form the digital twin platform. So I hope that the next time you're engaged in a digital twin conversation, when you're being asked questions, or indeed if you're trying to determine whether any relevant action or investment might be beneficial, I would certainly encourage you to think of digital twin through the lens of capability. It becomes a lot less scary. You'll find that you're already investing in various capabilities, and that indeed makes the journey, hopefully, a lot more easy. So finally, just a couple of points. You've started already, believe it or not, but I also want to highlight the fact that digital twins are not for everyone. You don't go looking for a problem to use digital twin to solve. Start with those goals, those targets, have a clear vision for why you think those capabilities are best. Build a business case around it. How are you going to invest in digital twins so that it can support your city's goals, specific targets, and of course, in a way, make them tangible and real and beneficial for the community. Building up your own capability is key. Just outsourcing digital twin platform development, digital model development, that's not helping build your internal capability. Technology is easy. Having people then use it as a powerful tool to make better decisions, that's hard. So you can't just go out and buy a digital twin off the shelf. It's about building that capability and the ability for humans to use that tool for good. And making sure, as I've mentioned there, that the relevant technology and data enablers are certainly part of it. But that is at the end, once you've worked out specifically what your goals and targets are and how you think that digital twin capability can support your urban planning practices. And with that, Craig, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That was excellent. We are under the ASEAN Australian Smart Cities Trust Fund embarking on a project at the moment in Hue in Vietnam to develop a digital twin, a 3D parametric planning tool. And I think the way you've described the framework for a digital twin in such simple terms and really clear is a credit. It's a really complex beast, and it can get quite complicated with the technology and the various use case aspects. But I think you've outlined that exceptionally well. So thank you very much for that presentation, Adam. We are running a few minutes behind, which is pretty usual when we've got such excellent presentations, but I'll quickly go to the next presentation. Thank you, Christine, is sharing her screen. And introduce Andrew Saard and Adrian Frue from the City of Gold Coast. Andrew and Adrian lead various teams within the Gold Coast. Andrew has over 15 years of local government and private sector experience in the development of models and tools to support infrastructure and land use planning. Andrew's an architecture graduate with 3D modeling experience. Adrian has been involved in urban planning for over 12 years, both in the private and public sector. He's worked on nationally awarded community-led master planning projects, city shaping, land use projects, and around public transport and infrastructure. So I'd like to hand over to, I think, Andrew, who's going to kick us off.
It's Adrian will kick us off.
Adrian.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Craig, for that warm introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope the echo in here isn't too bad and you can all hear me okay. Is that okay, Craig?
Yes, it's fine from my end. Thank you, Adrian. It's nice and clear. Yep.
That's good. Okay, thank you. So Andrew and I are from the City of Gold Coast Council. I'd like to acknowledge our traditional elders, past, present and future. So today we'll go over some of the work we've been doing in our respective teams. Okay, get to the next slide, please, Christine. Thank you. So for our presentation, it's actually important I give you some context of where the Gold Coast is located. We're on the east coast of Australia. It's the fastest growing region called Southeast Queensland. The region has a population of 3.7 million people, divided into 12 local government areas. The Gold Coast is the second largest city in this region and the sixth largest city in Australia. We've got a population of about 650,000 residents. As you can see in that middle image, the Gold Coast is a very linear city. So it's located in the bottom right-hand corner of that image. It hugs the coastline of the Pacific Ocean. It's also constrained by a mountain range to the west, and then it extends north along the highway that connects to Brisbane. And Brisbane is the largest city in Southeast Queensland. The city is renowned for its enviable lifestyle that takes advantage of so many great natural attractions, the beach, its waterways, and rainforest. Could I get to the next slide, please? Thank you. It was important to give you that context because the Gold Coast takes its planning guidance from the state government and its Southeast Queensland Regional Plan. This regional plan sets planning direction for sustainable growth, global economic competitiveness, and high quality living that all 12 local governments within it align to. The regional plan also has a large focus on protecting the natural environment from continued urban expansion and planning for future infrastructure to accommodate a more consolidated growth model. At a local level, the Gold Coast sets out its intent for future development through its city plan. As per the right-hand image, the city is divided into different zones, and these zones largely regulate what land use activities can occur. I'll now pass you over to Andrew to take you over some of the work that he's doing with the strategic infrastructure team. Before I come back to you to give you an overview of how emerging data has helped to inform a project I'm working on in the regional planning team.
Thank you. If we can have the next slide. The local government infrastructure plan is a requirement of Queensland's state planning policy. This is known as the Planning Act. Every Queensland council is required to have a local government infrastructure plan, or what we call LGIP, or we cannot collect infrastructure charges from future development. This plan is currently worth approximately $120 million to the city each year. The local government infrastructure plan presents how much development is going to occur into the future and how much it will cost to support that development with planned infrastructure projects, what we call trunk infrastructure. These are projects servicing multiple developments. The plan is produced based on mandated guidelines and definitions, and this is to ensure that each local government infrastructure plan is consistent across Queensland, so the state of Queensland, including we have a third-party independent review of the plan, and we also publicly consult on the plan, and the state government also reviews the plan as well. So the intention is to plan the right amount of infrastructure at the right time and at the right location to support future residential and non-residential development. Next slide, please. Large local governments, such as the City of Gold Coast, require detailed models and tools to inform their infrastructure and land use planning. The Planning and Urban Growth Model, or PUG model, as we call it, was implemented to support the city's infrastructure and land use planning. The model takes in a variety of spatial data inputs, such as population and employment projections and forecasts. These are at small area levels, so this is sort of like our allocation of growth across the city, and these are requirements of the local government infrastructure plan. Existing land use information, this is dwellings, so how many houses and units, how much floor space by various land use categories. This is for each property in the city. And so this is to ensure that we're presenting or representing the future growth of the city from a reliable existing level of development. It also takes in approved development, so these are the approvals. So the model can allocate growth realistically based on approved development. The model also takes in constraints and overlays such as flood affected areas and land affected by bushfire. This is so the model avoids developing areas that are practically constrained from future development. The model finally takes in the city plan assumptions in terms of what development can occur on each property in the city. This is to ensure the model is representing future growth based on the settings in our city plan. And these are the settings that developers have to adhere to when they're developing their development. So the model, what it produces is a development projection scenario. This is in GIS format that is loaded with land use attributes at each time period from now into the future for each property in the city. And so then each infrastructure network uses this scenario to determine how much demand there is on their network and the infrastructure projects they will need into the future. This includes things like how much open space and parks we're going to need, how many new roads and upgrades to existing roads we're going to need, even how our stormwater network will be treated, and ensuring water and sewer pipes and facilities are provided where needed. Next slide, please. So this is next generation modelling for local governments, and it's now implemented to support city planning with analytics, such as detailed existing and future land use statistics. So things like how many people are in houses or apartments, and also how much floor space and how many employees there are across the city. This includes mapping of development at varying levels of detail. So thematic maps of dwellings, population, employment, and floor space at different scales, and scenario visualization and analysis. So, what happens if we change policy settings? Will this lead to higher growth or a different list of planned infrastructure projects? So that's really important for us to test to see if we have the settings right. So this model is important to our evidence-based planning and is used not only to support infrastructure planning, but also it's used in our city plan updates and our performance monitoring. And Adrian will now provide you with an overview of one of those monitoring examples that we are currently working on. Thanks. Next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So I work in the regional planning team, and we are building upon the work Andrew's team is doing to inform land use planning policy. An example is through our what's called the Productive Gold Coast project, and this is investigating all of the city's employment lands. It seeks to inform potential changes to policy by building upon previous research with information from new data sets that we've done in partnership with local universities. These pilot data sets investigate emerging issues in the post-COVID world in particular. So the engagement with universities has largely focused on the changing role of retail and the local unique characteristics, my apologies, and features of a lot of our centres. And we've also focused on the data collection from co-working facilities, and we've done some drive-throughs with the universities through industrial and commercial areas as well. We've also analysed a lot of real-time data, and this has included a lot of movement based on telecommunications data. To reassure everyone, this is not refined to specific addresses, but large statistical areas where the data is converted into heat mapping. The data provides high level insights into people's movement, where the busiest employment areas are, where those people travel from, and how long they spend in those areas. We also have access to some interesting visa expenditure data, so we can gain insights into where people are spending money and when. Again, not refined to specific addresses, but they are all used to help provide insights into, I guess, the busiest areas and areas where there is large expenditure. We've also conducted a large number of surveys with home-based workers and also industrial businesses. The preliminary findings that we've found so far is that, just as the slide suggests, the city has a number of maturing employment centres that are interconnected with high-level employment sectors. There's a global trend towards higher value-added industries. So on the Gold Coast, these include advanced manufacturing, travel and tourism, information and communication services, knowledge and administration, and a lot of business consulting services. The prioritisation of sufficient commercial and industrial floor space, complementary infrastructure, combined with the high amenity offered on the Gold Coast, these factors could attract further international talent and investment. We've also found that
Adrian, that just sort of cut out a little bit.
Activated street. Oh, can you hear me now?
Just cut out a little bit then. Maybe just repeat that last sentence. Yeah.
It is cutting about it, Adrian,
sure.
But maybe we've just got about a minute to go. If you can wrap up this section, would be great. Thank you.
Fine. So what I do is I might just say a couple of the other large ones. Essentially, we found some themes with industrial areas. There's a lot of non-industrial uses, such as gyms and retail and office space, creeping into these industrial areas. And the advances in technology are also changing the way that industrial uses operate. This may potentially lead to changes to their built form requirements, such as taller warehouses that can accommodate more efficient automation. Can I get to the next slide then, please? Okay. In terms of online working arrangements, we've seen an acceleration in the emerging trend for home-based work and co-working spaces, with which increases the importance of smaller neighbourhood centres and their walkability. So in other words, we've seen people who work from home, they will take advantage of the time they would normally take on their daily commute to work, but instead support their local shops and cafes and enjoy more outdoor recreational activities and even socialise with their neighbours. So these findings are helping to inform the performance of our city plan and give insights into potential changes that we can adapt to these emerging trends. So this presentation has provided just a few examples of how we are using a data-driven approach to our infrastructure and land use planning. So sorry I couldn't cover all of those. I just skipped ahead. I felt a bit pressured. So that's our presentation. So thank you very much.
We're happy to take on questions too. There's lots of other things we do. We only had 8 minutes, so we just gave you a few examples.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Andrew. I think it's I think we've certainly got a really good taste of the amount of work and just the pure amount of data that you're collecting in the Gold Coast to support better city planning, better decisions, and it really shows, I think, the power of an integrated data ecosystem and combining with integrating that with regulation and presenting that in a way that you can compare two different data sets and find out things you would not otherwise know. So I think that's really impressive. So thank you very much, Christine. If we can go back to the slide deck. Yeah. So what we might do now is head into a question and answer session. As I said, we are running a little bit behind. We've got about 27 minutes left. So if you've got any questions for our speakers today, please raise your hand. And Christine, if you can help me to identify anyone that raises their hand and we can ask some questions of the presenters. Was that you raising your hand for a question, Prof. Ananto? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Pak Craig. I interest on Gold Coast urban planning. That is by the same with Makassar characteristics. My question is, how is the planning strategy for the development of waterfront city, include marine tourism in coastal areas and small islands that are prone to large waves, sea storms, and possibility of tsunami? Thank you very much. Maybe it is.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Professor. I'll have a go at answering the question. Adrian, you feel free to also say what you want to say, but I was going to say we've just recently developed a strategy. It's called the Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy, or the CHAS, and that's really looking at the next 100 years for the city and the expected sea level rise, climate change. It looks at all of those things and how we might make the city more resilient going forward. So yeah, it is a challenge being a coastal city. We have a unique situation of coastal impact of the sea tide, waves, and then we have river areas of the city as well, runoff from the mountains. So our floods can be quite severe, so we have to be ready for that. So the city's been planning for that for a long time now. So the Coastal Hazards Adaptation Strategy will be the strategy that we'll be using for the next sort of 100 years, hopefully to keep us safe and dry.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I think you nailed it there with our CHAS. I might just also mention a couple of other projects that we've done in terms of physical infrastructure. They've developed a rock wall under the majority of the coastline. So we've got 50 kilometers worth of, and it's quite cohesive in our transition between our roads and our built form to straight onto the sands of the beach. But underneath is actually quite a wall that we refer to as the A line. And that protects all of the physical built infrastructure. When there is any coastal erosion, what happens is we can easily just ship some sand, truck some sand back onto the beaches, regenerate and replenish, and not have to worry too much about the built form behind that rock wall. So I just thought I'd mention that.
And we're constantly pumping sand from one end of the city to the other to kind of keep our reserves of sand in the right sort of at the right amounts. And I'm probably explaining this poorly because it's not really my particular area of expertise, but I do know that that process happens constantly. So constantly adjusting the amount of sand on our beaches just to make sure that it's all in place if we do get a storm event.
Well, thank you both for answering those questions. We do have another question from the chat from a Mr. Haryadi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I would like to get insights on how digitalization technology could support networking or coordination in medical waste handling in cities. Is there a ready-made tool to support networking coordination of that type of waste? I'll open it up. Maybe Adam, you might have some insights into some tools or some opportunities for managing waste streams.
That's a great question. I don't have anything coming to mind at the moment. I'm sure there would be. It would be a matter of an extension of existing waste management and separation and sorting processes, but in a way that has a digital sort of footprint behind it, or a thumbprint. We are seeing the use of QR codes in some parts of the world being applied well beyond sort of maybe their original purposes in different sort of supply chain circumstances. So nothing comes to mind at the moment, but I'm sure there's something.
Thanks, Adam. Any other panelists have any ideas on that? I think in terms of our experience, there's certainly tools that are being developed that could be adapted to that kind of waste stream. But yeah, so maybe we don't know of any specific at the moment, but we can certainly do some investigating and come back to you. But thank you for that question. Maybe I had a question for you, Adam, while you've got the chair. I thought your description of the digital twin was excellent in its simplicity of such a complex subject, but maybe can you expand on the concept of a use case and how that informs the early planning of a digital twin? What are the key elements of that use case to ensure that that digital twin is used over the long term and it's sustainable?
Certainly, Craig. We're seeing cities, if I just speak to Australia's experience, we're seeing a number of cities starting to develop their vision and business cases for digital twin. Hobart in Tasmania was one of the first. As part of their business case process, they identified just over 20 different use cases for digital twin within that city. That included things like international and domestic tourism from a wayfinding and sort of experience perspective. They also had a use case around international investment in development and the ability for the private sector to very rapidly seek intelligence using different data assets to do their relevant due diligence. We see it around mobility. We see it around asset management and monitoring. That is a big one. And we're also seeing the use of IoT sensors in the public realm, whether that be pedestrian sensing, environmental conditions, landscape sensing. And so all of those data assets that are sort of coming through on what were originally more analog dashboards being populated within a multi-dimensional digital environment. So they're starting to piece together existing capability and identifying use cases that make sense for them. We're seeing common use cases from city to city, but we're certainly seeing those that have, unique goals and unique characteristics. Another one in a coastal area down south of Melbourne in Victoria, very much landscape biodiversity, coastal erosion, and revegetation and regeneration are sort of really important use cases that they've established, and they're using data inputs from new data capture methods for them, for example, through drone photography and also other sensing of the coastline. So depending on the geographic location, depending on whether it's a metropolitan city or a more suburban or peri-urban town or local government area, the priorities and the use cases are all different. But the good thing is we are seeing local government, municipalities, dip their toe in the water and have a look at how those digital twin capabilities can come together for the benefit of their community. Because traditionally, the digital twin as a data platform has been really one associated with private sector and mining and aerospace and Formula One, and that immediately conjures up images and ideas of multi-million-dollar consulting fees and technology vendors, where hopefully I've sort of highlighted the fact that we've all started even just with a GIS platform. So when we look at it as those set of capabilities and build it up from there, it becomes a lot less scary.
I couldn't agree with you more, Adam. I think that's a great response. We do have a couple of other questions, and the first one I might come back to you on from Wajahat Nasa. How is redundant sensor data dealt with in digital twins? So I'm not sure exactly what we mean by redundant sensor data, but maybe the data that's sitting there and not used. But
yeah,
Adam, do you have
well,
any thoughts on that?
Yeah, my first comment would be it should be dealt with in accordance with the relevant privacy and security policy that the organisation has. If there is no privacy or security policy in place around, or governance around data, my response would be make sure you destroy it. Any good data strategy should identify what you collect and what you destroy and when you do it. Data is a significant asset. It's also a liability as well. Data costs money, taxpayers' money to treat and protect. And if you're not using data, I would be destroying it in accordance with best practice. And indeed, I wouldn't collect it in the first place unless it's actually going to be used. So those would be my comments.
Andrew, I can see you nodding. Do you have anything to add to that?
I thought that was pretty well summarised.
Thank you. We do have one other question from Declan O'Leary. Any insights into investment requirements? While the potential is great, the capital investment and longer term operational costs, with a question mark, need to be considered from the start, and is referring to the digital twin model and the model, in Makassar, we've recommended a digital ecosystem, much like Gold Coast has prepared and has operational, and then linking through to the digital twin work that Adam's described. So the consideration of the costs right from the start. Do you and the panelists have any comments on that question? I think it's we talked about sustainability and ensuring that we have the capability, Adam, within the institution to maintain and operate the technology. That's vital, and that's also important to keep the cost down in the long-term sense. But it may be more costly upfront during the training session. I think one of the high cost items is that training. You know, maybe not the license fees, maybe not the collecting the data, but actually training and keeping people up, those officials up to date on the technology.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't think it's too dissimilar to any digitalization, you know, transformation process you go through. There's going to be capital costs. There's going to be costs associated with staff time. But talking about costs is kind of irrelevant if you're not going to talk about benefits. You know, contracting a vendor or consultant for 4 million Australian dollars to build a digital model may be a drop in the ocean compared to the benefits that are going to be delivered to 24 million people. And, you know, if you're delivering a 1% productivity improvement on an asset that, you know, can deliver a lot more benefit, I mean, the cost is irrelevant. What I would say is that it should be focused around realizing benefits. That's what matters. Cost doesn't matter, benefits matter. And all benefits, you know, will have an input. Cost will be one of those. So, so I don't want to give the impression that cost doesn't matter, but this is really outdated thinking and mindsets that we all have. Every transformation agenda has always cost us, whether it's green building, whether it's workplace health and safety, whether it's quality assurance. All of these transformation agendas are the same. They're asking us to do things that we haven't done before, and that naturally comes with cost. The key is not wasting money, not wasting public funds and taxpayers' money. So that requires good strategy, strong vision, ability to measure outcomes tangibly and communicate that to the public.
Thank you, Adam. So what we might do now is go to the next session. So thank you to all our speakers. We really appreciate your time and answering the questions. Christine is going to bring up Menti, and we'll try that one more time. And we've got a few questions we just want to pose to everybody using that Menti tool. So if you can see on screen the instructions, and we'll try that again. Christine, would you like to provide the instructions for Menti one more time?
Yes, Craig, yeah. So, okay, let's try this one more time, because I think the Mentimeter platform earlier was having some server issues, which was why maybe some people were having trouble. But let's try this again this time. So three ways that you can join this poll. So either you can scan the QR code with your smart device, or you can also go to www.menti.com using your browser and enter the code 518-9403. And also I will try to get my colleague Sarah to also share the Mentimeter link on the Zoom chat box, because we wanted to get your opinion on what smart digital city planning tools do you think would benefit your city the most. So just in case there are other people who are still having issues, we could do a hybrid approach as well. You are very welcome to either put your responses on the chat box, and also if you're also game to share your thoughts with the rest of the participants, so you could raise your hand as well, and just wait for our moderator Craig to recognize you. So back to you, Craig.
Thanks, Christine. So what smart city digital city planning tools do you think would benefit your city the most? And I think we've heard a few today. There's the digital twin, the 3D modeling, ArcGIS and spatial data. We've heard you've seen the Makassar Livable City Plan, which is an interactive online platform to communicate priorities. We've seen dashboards where you can interact with prioritization of different smart city measures and prioritize your investments. We've seen a citywide ecosystem around the Gold Coast, which has a lot of applications and is collecting a lot of data and linking to a range of sources. So we're really keen to hear from you if you have any thoughts around which tools or which platforms you think in your city might benefit your city the most. So are we going to share the Mentimeter screen now, Christine? Okay, so we have a few responses there. Quite a bit of focus on GIS and spatial data, which is the foundation, I guess, for spatial planning. We've got AI and digital twins. So the idea of the use of artificial intelligence to support the digital twins, that's a next stage for building on the digital twin and the 3D model concept. I think our colleagues in the Gold Coast are close to embedding AI into the systems to link different data sets. And I assume Adrian, Andrew, that might be the next step.
Yeah, you're using a bit of artificial intelligence to inform our propensity, we call it, so attractors and detractors for growth. So yeah, training models. It's amazing, the technology and what you can kind of do now. It's great. We just need to leverage it.
Yeah, exactly. We're also working in Vietnam at the moment using satellite imagery through AI and deep learning to create the digital terrain models and the 3D model. So there's a lot of things we can do and try and reduce some of the costs of survey and of creating that 3D model.
It's also really powerful for built form change detection. So you can train an AI model to look at aerial imagery and then look at another aerial imagery and then tell you what's changed or what's different. So we've had huge, I've seen huge value out of that particular use case too.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you everyone for your contribution to that. We might go to the next question, but while we're doing that, we just had a question from Andika from the Environmental and Cleanliness Department of Palembang City in Indonesia. She wants to ask if there's already digital systems for waste management for a city. So waste management becomes an advantage for that city. So reusing waste or creating an economy around waste. So we can, if anyone has any thoughts, participants or panelists, on whether there's any existing digital systems or existing digital tools for waste management that can support better waste management.
It's Adrian here. I'd like to share some insights, but unfortunately that's not my area of expertise at the City of Gold Coast. We've got a separate water and waste area, unfortunately, and you're just bringing to my attention that I really should have a better understanding of this and have some discussions with that team. So sorry, I don't have any insights into that one.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate your honesty, and I think there's a range of areas that we can apply digital tools to, and certainly, you know, our experience in Makassar is that there's a lot of appetite for monitoring waste, and there's a lot of benefits to monitoring and digitizing some solutions to support better waste management. The infrastructure's there, the bins and the operational bones of the waste system is good in Makassar, but there's operational elements that, you know, management elements that could be improved through the use of digital tools. So it's one of the areas we recognized in our smart city work in Makassar that could benefit from digital tools. So Andika, it's certainly on the agenda, but maybe we can come back to you on some of the specific tools that are available. So we've got the second Mentimeter question up there. What are the biggest challenges that your city faces in developing or adopting smart digital city planning tools. So those of you who are in Menti, it'd be great to see your answers on what those challenges might be that your city faces in developing the tools. Is it the cost element? We heard from Adam that we should be talking about benefits, but what are some of the challenges? Is it capacity or understanding of where those digital tools are and what's available? We've heard a couple of questions today about availability of certain tools. Do we not know what we don't know? Those sorts of questions. So feel free to put your answers into Menti. If we can go to the Menti screen and share some of the responses, that'd be great. Thanks, Christine. Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, so we see some of those common themes there, limited funds, the lack of actually gathering data. I think that's really important. It's amazing where we do actually gather data and we don't know that we're gathering the data. There's pockets of data sets all around cities. So it's about knowing where those are and how to leverage those. But also there's some specific data sets that we do need to think about how we collect and how we collect it for a certain function. I think this is really good responses. So I think we've got a couple of minutes left. Thank you. What we'll do is we'll send out the answers to some of these questions. We'll certainly keep reaching out to everyone in this network. The purpose of today is to link everyone to some of our experts and to each other. So after this session, we'll reach out to you all and make sure you're furnished with the presentations, access to the recording, and we'll also provide some of the answers to some of these other questions that maybe we couldn't answer in this particular session. But if you, Christine, if you go back to the presentation, I'll just, so that's it. So question number 3, what support would your city benefit from the most in order to develop or adopt smart cities? So it follows on from those 2 questions. What are the challenges? And then what support would your city benefit from the most in terms of developing those smart city digital planning tools that we identified in the first question? Is it, we've talked about funds quite a bit. Is it the funds? Is it these kind of sessions where we share understanding, we share opportunities, we share tools? Is it about capacity building? Is it more around the commitment of government officials and senior politicians to support this process? What is the support that your city would need? So feel free to keep putting your answers in the chat if you don't have access to Menti. Thank you. So I have a few answers in the chat. Capacity building, citywide connectivity of infrastructure. And there's some other comments here. One question we do have is if there's any insights on the spatial data preparation. So the 3D data, is it prepared solely by the government or a collaboration between the government and the private industry, obviously in terms of sharing the cost? Indonesia has a centralized base map policy, which means that the national mapping institutions provide all the base maps. And this is our main problem, the data.
I can probably speak to this one a little bit, Craig, if you like.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
In my experience at Brisbane City Council, for example, local governments will do this in different ways now. So there are vendors who provide these solutions. So vendors who will provide citywide 3D model data sets. They can be aerial captured. So planes that are equipped with cameras and equipment that capture like laser scan data, but also pictometry imagery. So imagery, oblique imagery, laser scan data, which can be combined to form a 3D model. There are different products now and some really good vendors that have emerged over the last sort of 15 years. So local governments will either pay for that, acquire those data sets, or they will collaborate with other local governments, or they'll even collaborate with the state government now to acquire and update their 3D models. We do have a similar limitation though with our base map data, what we call the cadastre, the property layer. It's state government provided. It's quite an old system in Queensland, in our state. It has its issues, its legacy issues, and they are in the process of transforming that system to make it more modern, but something that we still live with at the moment. It's a little bit of a problem. So you're not alone.
Yes, exactly. I think it's pretty interesting to see. You know, we work in the trust fund. We work across a number of countries and all the cities. There's a lot of appetite. There's a lot of interest in digital tools, and there's a lot that we can learn from each other. There's a lot of sharing that we can do. Adam talked earlier about the standards. You know, the standards for digital twins are coming, but in the meantime, we can be sharing at these kinds of forums and sharing our common stresses and opportunities or solutions. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to start the conversation and keep moving towards that sort of common approach and tailoring the digital solutions to the particular city and the particular use case that we have. And I think we can see on the screen capacity building and funds are sticking out as quite important challenges and support needed for that capacity building. And again, we talked about digital transformation and the importance of supporting that process. Well, thank you, everyone. It's about 5 minutes past the hour. So if anyone has any other questions you haven't been able to ask, or there's a burning thought on your mind, we've got a few minutes now that we can raise those questions. I'll just give you a minute to have a think. If there's any questions you would like to raise with the speakers or with the participants, feel free to raise your hand. But otherwise, we'll just start that final reflections on the session and close the session. Thank you very much. So just in terms of final reflections, if we go back to the previous slide, that topic, we heard today from 3 excellent presentations and 4 speakers, and each of those speakers had a particular digital innovation to share with us. I hope everyone got value out of that sharing. There's a lot of work being done right around the region. There's a lot of work being done in various pockets of the region to transform the way city planning works with people and the way we respond to the constraints and the challenges we have, from climate resilience through to transit-oriented development, managing coastlines, and livability generally. There's a lot of data we can collect, and the idea of having tools and digital tools to support us collaborating across sectors is really vital. It's important that city governments work together, and a way we can do that, particularly in sometimes restricted movements due to COVID and other restrictions. It's important that we have these digital tools and be able to share and collaborate virtually. So I thank everyone for your attendance today. And Christine, we do have a evaluation form and a participation certificate process. So if you go into the link that you can see on the screen, scan that QR code, you'll be able to provide feedback for us and how we might improve these sessions in the future. Any feedback's most welcome. And also the certificates for your attendance today will be sent to you about a week after the event. Christine, did I get that all right?
Yeah, that's all good, Craig. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Thank you, everybody. We'll close the session there, but thank you everyone for your attendance. Sorry, one more thing. We do have another session tomorrow, starting at the slightly earlier time, but at 4 p.m. Australian time, 2 p.m. Manila, Philippines, Makassar time. And there's two streams of thematic sessions, much like today's program. One is on how digitalization can help create resilient and inclusive cities. And session 4 there, how digitalization can help improve smart city knowledge and capacity. So we talked today a lot about capacity building. So session 4 might be of interest to some of you who are interested in how we build that capacity. And then we'll finish with a closing session. We have a few speakers who will talk to general concepts around inclusive cities and wrapping up this networking conference. Have I missed any other slides, Christine, or that's it? Yeah, so there's some
so I just
instructions.
wanted to, so basically, so just a note on the way that you will join the sessions tomorrow is basically the same way that you joined this afternoon session. So you would be able to access the join button from the event lobby tomorrow, and you will be able to see the join button tomorrow, maybe an hour or like 30 minutes before the session starts. So, but if any of you are having trouble joining the sessions tomorrow, please do let the organizers know, and we'll try to sort you out.
Thank you, Christine. And I'll just finish up now and say thank you to all our speakers, Professor Ananto Udono, Adam Beck, Andrew Saard, and Adrian Frue. Thank you very much for your time today and for presenting. And thank you everyone for your contributions. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. See you tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Craig.
Craig.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Right.